At the airport check-in, my daughter pulled the agent aside and whispered, "My mother's doctor advised against flying, her heart." Then she handed me a taxi voucher. "Sorry, Mom. We'll see you when we get back." She and the husband had forgotten too soon that the entire trip, flights, hotel, everything, was on my platinum card. I canceled it all before their first flight even landed. They saw an old woman, frail and easily dismissed. They never imagined that behind the quiet facade was a mind as sharp as ever, wielding a power they had long since forgotten. I'm glad that you've made time again to watch my story, my cherished viewer. Please feel free to express your views on the stories. I look forward to your suggestions for improvement. In the meantime, stay with me and witness the precise, cold moment when their web of lies unraveled at 30,000 feet. The journey was meant to be a pilgrimage, a final, hallowed act of love. We were flying to a small, windswept town on the coast of Scotland, the birthplace of my late husband, Eamon. He had been gone for a year that had hollowed out the world, leaving its colors muted and its sounds distant. This trip was his final wish, a clause written not in the sterile legalese of his will, but in the sprawling, tender narrative of our life together. He wanted his ashes scattered from the cliffs of his hometown, where the North Sea churns in a constant state of fury and grace, and the sky is a vast, ever-changing canvas of moody gray. He wanted his wife, his only daughter Fiona, and his son-in-law Linus, a man he had never fully trusted, to be there together. It was to be a final act of unity, a closing of a circle that his death had left painfully open. I had planned every detail with the meticulous care of a cartographer mapping a sacred land. The flights to Glasgow on British Airways, seats with extra legroom for my old knees. The charming, family-run Glenmore House Hotel, with its sweeping views of the sea, the very one Eamon had pointed out in a travel magazine years ago. The sturdy hired car for the final leg of the journey along the coast. It was a trip steeped in meaning, a final, tangible goodbye to the man who had been my anchor for 45 years. And, on a more practical level, it was expensive. The Heritage Hotel for 5 nights, the arrangements with a local boatman Eamon had known as a boy, it all added up. But it was a cost I was more than willing to bear. I had booked everything on my personal platinum credit card, the one Eamon and I had shared for decades. Its generous limit was not a symbol of extravagance, but a testament to a lifetime of financial prudence and shared success. Fiona and Linus, whose lives were a perpetual, chaotic cycle of financial instability and poorly conceived business ventures, had of course made a great show of offering to pay their share. It was a hollow gesture, and we all knew it. Their catering business had folded last spring, leaving a trail of debt they elegantly ignored. I remembered Eamon's words from 2 years prior, after Linus had borrowed £5,000 for an investment in artisanal dog treats that never materialized. "He doesn't see money the way we do, Marion," Eamon had said, his voice gentle but firm. "For him, it's not something you earn, it's something you get. Be careful." I had heeded his warning, and so, when they offered to contribute, I had simply waved it away with a sad smile. "This is for your father," I had said. "Let me handle it." They had agreed with a speed that should have been my first blaring warning sign. The morning of the flight, the air in my home was thick with a strange, cloying tension. Linus was obnoxiously solicitous, insisting on carrying my single, lightweight bag and repeatedly asking if I was comfortable. Fiona was quiet, her eyes darting away every time they met mine, her face a mask of strained solemnity. I attributed it to the emotional weight of the journey. I was carrying Eamon's ashes in a small, discreet cherrywood urn inside my carry-on bag, its weight a heavy, tangible reminder of our solemn purpose. I had the necessary paperwork, the death certificate and the certificate of cremation, in a neat folder. As per airline regulations, I leave nothing to chance. At the bustling terminal at Heathrow, the roar of 1,000 simultaneous journeys filling the air, we approached the check-in counter. The agent, A pleasant young woman named Annika, according to her name tag, smiled at us. "Good morning. Passports and booking reference, please." I handed her my passport and the printout of our itinerary. As she began tapping at her keyboard, Fiona leaned in close to her, placing a hand on the counter to create a small, conspiratorial wall of privacy. Her voice was a low murmur, but in the echoing acoustics of the terminal, I caught every single, devastating word. "Excuse me," Fiona said, her voice laced with a beautifully crafted note of concern. "We have a bit of a sensitive situation with my mother." The agent looked up from her screen, her professional smile faltering into a look of cautious sympathy. "Oh? Yes," Fiona continued, glancing back at me with an expression of deep, fraudulent piety. "Her cardiologist, a Dr. Evans, gave us some rather worrying advice last week. He strongly advised against her flying, something about the cabin pressure, a new medication she's on for arrhythmia, her heart. My heart! My heart, which according to my actual doctor of 20 years, Dr. Sharma, was as strong as a draft horse. I hadn't seen a cardiologist in a decade. Dr. Evans did not exist. The lie was so audacious, so breathtakingly cruel, that I felt the air leave my lungs. I stood frozen, my mind a maelstrom of confusion and dawning horror. This was not a spontaneous decision. This had been planned. This was a coup. The agent, now looking genuinely concerned, followed her training protocol. She looked directly at me, her expression professional but kind. "Mrs. O'Connell, your daughter has raised a medical concern. Can you confirm for me that you are fit to travel today and have no conditions that would be exacerbated by the flight?" The words were stuck in my throat. I was blindsided, winded by the treachery. "My heart?" I finally managed, my voice a disbelieving croak. "What are you talking about?" "That's absurd." Linus immediately stepped forward, playing his part to perfection. He placed a hand on my arm, his face a mask of sorrowful resignation. He looked at the agent. "You see? Confusion. It's one of the side effects the doctor warned us about. She's in denial. We're so worried she's going to have an episode mid-flight." He was painting a picture of me as a confused, frail old woman, deaf to reason, a danger to myself. "I am not confused," I said, my voice rising with indignation, which only served to make me look flustered and, to an outsider, potentially unstable. "Fiona, what is the meaning of this?" "Mom, please don't make a scene," she whispered, her eyes wide with feigned panic. She turned back to the agent, her voice breaking slightly. "We begged her to stay home. We have her new pills right here." She fumbled in her purse and produced a small bottle of common aspirin, a detail of such calculated deceit it made me physically sick. The agent's face was now a study in corporate caution. A scene was developing. A family was loudly claiming their elderly mother was medically unfit to fly. My protestations, colored by shock and anger, were likely sounding more hysterical than rational. She spoke into her radio. A supervisor, a stern-looking man in a sharp suit, appeared within a minute. Fiona repeated the lie to him with even more conviction. The supervisor listened patiently, then turned to me. "Ma'am, do you have a current letter from your physician clearing you for air travel?" "No. Why would I? I'm perfectly healthy." "I understand, ma'am," he said, his tone inflexibly polite. "However, your next of kin have raised a specific and serious medical concern. Our policy, in such a situation, for the safety of all passengers and yourself, is that we cannot allow you to board without explicit medical clearance. Given the conflicting reports and your lack of documentation, I cannot in good conscience permit you to fly today. The liability is simply too great." It was a perfectly logical, completely infuriating, bureaucratic checkmate. They had used the airline's own rulebook against me. Fiona nodded gravely at the supervisor. "Thank you. We understand completely. It's for her own good." She then turned to me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, a truly remarkable performance. She took my cold hand. "Mom, I am so sorry. We can't let you risk it. We have to go. The arrangements for Dad, they're all set." She pressed a folded piece of paper into my other hand. It was a taxi voucher. "This will get you home," she said, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. "We'll call you as soon as we land. We'll FaceTime you from the cliffs. It will be like you're right there with us. We'll see you when we get back." They didn't wait for me to respond. With a final, sorrowful look back from Linus, they turned and presented their own passports. They were checked in within minutes. They walked away, pulling their suitcases, and were swallowed by the crowd at security. They never looked back. They left me standing there, a useless taxi voucher in one hand and my carry-on bag, containing my husband's ashes, in the other. I watched them go. The shock was a physical thing, a cold wave that washed over me, leaving me numb. They had abandoned me. And then the reason for it all crashed into me with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't about my health, it was about their convenience. They wanted a vacation, not a pilgrimage. They didn't want a grieving widow reminding them of the solemnity of the occasion. They wanted the 5-star hotel, the scenic drives, the fine single malt whiskey, all on my dime, without the inconvenient presence of the person the trip was actually for. They had stolen my grief, stolen my husband's final wish, and repackaged it as a free holiday. The numbness receded, replaced by a feeling I hadn't felt in years. A cold, clear, and absolute anger. It wasn't the hot, messy anger of a screaming match. It was the focused, glacial rage of a woman who had been profoundly, catastrophically underestimated. They saw me as a frail old woman, a problem to be managed and discarded with a taxi voucher. They had forgotten who I was. They had forgotten that Eamon hadn't been the only one in our partnership with a spine of steel. I did not take the taxi home. I walked, with a calm, measured gait that belied the tempest inside me, to the British Airways Premium Lounge. I was still a member, a courtesy extended to the spouses of their highest-tier frequent flyers. The woman at the desk recognized my name immediately. "Mrs. O'Connell, a pleasure. Is everything all right? I see your flight has just departed." "There has been a change of plans," I said, my voice steady. "May I use one of your private phone booths? I need to make an urgent financial call." "Of course," she said, leading me to a quiet, soundproofed cubicle. "Let me know if you need anything at all." I sat in the plush armchair. I took out my platinum credit card. I looked at the name embossed on the front. Marion O'Connell. I flipped it over and dialed the number on the back, but I didn't follow the main prompts. I waited and used the option to speak to an operator. And then I used very specific words. "I need to be connected to your senior client risk assessment department, please. It concerns a matter of financial abuse." After a brief hold, a different kind of voice came on the line. It was calm, serious, and devoid of cheerful scripts. "This is David, with the Risk Assessment Unit. I understand you have a concern, Mrs. O'Connell. My file shows you've been a cardholder in good standing for 38 years. How can I help you?" "Hello, David," I said. "I am reporting a series of transactions that were made for a purpose which has now been rendered fraudulent through coercion and theft. Please, explain the situation." I laid it out with the precision of a prosecutor. I explained that I, the primary cardholder, had booked a comprehensive trip for 3 people, myself included. I detailed how my daughter and son-in-law had, just an hour ago, conspired to prevent me from boarding the flight by making false medical claims to the airline. I used the words unauthorized exclusion, misrepresentation, coercion, and theft of services. I emphasized that the entire value of the trip, booked on my card, was now being used solely by the individuals who had actively prevented me from taking part in it. "This is not a simple family dispute, David," I stated clearly. "This is a calculated act of financial abuse against an elderly person. They have effectively stolen a £14,000 vacation." David was silent for a moment. I heard the soft, rapid click of his keyboard. "I see the charges here, Mrs. O'Connell. The flights, the 5-night booking at the Glenmore House Hotel, the Hertz rental. A very significant outlay." His tone was grave. "Thank you for being so clear. Given your history with us and the severity of the allegation, we can take immediate action. Here is what I can do right now." I listened intently. First, he said, I am placing an immediate freeze on your card to prevent any further charges. Second, we will act on the services not yet fully rendered. The return flights from Glasgow will be cancelled, effective immediately. The car rental with Hertz will also be cancelled. There may be a no-show fee for the car, but we will handle that. Third, and most critically, the hotel. I will personally contact the Glenmore House. I will inform them that the card used for the booking has been compromised in an act of financial fraud, and that all payments are being disputed and withdrawn. They will almost certainly cancel the reservation to mitigate their own losses. They will not let guests stay without a valid form of payment. And the outbound flight they are currently on, I asked? That service has been rendered, so we cannot cancel it. However, we will initiate a formal chargeback dispute for the full ticket price on the grounds that the services were not rendered to you, the cardholder, as intended. It will be a fight with the airline, but it's a fight we will have on your behalf. That is acceptable, I said, a cold satisfaction settling over me. I am very sorry you had to experience this, Mrs. O'Connell, David said, his voice imbued with genuine concern. But I can assure you, from a financial and logistical standpoint, your daughter and son-in-law's trip is over. Consider it done. After I hung up, I took a slow sip of the water the attendant had brought me. I looked at the urn sitting on the small table beside me. Well, Eamon, I whispered, it seems our trip has been postponed. But I promise you, we will get you home, just not like this. And not with them. 7 hours later, I was back in my own house. The silence was a balm. I had made myself a small dinner. I sat in my armchair, the one with the view of the garden Eamon had so lovingly tended, and I waited. My phone rang just after 10 p.m. It was Fiona. Her voice was not the sorrowful, gentle tone she had used at the airport. It was a high-pitched shriek of pure, unadulterated panic. "Mom, what did you do?" she screamed, the sound tinny and distant. "Fiona, you've landed, I take it. How was the flight?" I asked, my voice a picture of innocent confusion. "Don't play dumb. The hotel. We got here in a taxi and the hotel. They said our reservation was canceled. They said the credit card was reported for fraud and the payment was withdrawn. They cut up our key cards in front of everyone in the lobby. They have no rooms." "Goodness," I said. "A fraudulent card? You mean my card? The one I used to book our family trip? The one you then lied to prevent me from taking?" "We didn't lie," she stammered, the desperation palpable. "Your heart. We were worried. We did it for you." "Don't you dare, Fiona," I said, and the cold fury in my voice, a tone she hadn't heard since she was a teenager, made her fall silent. "Do not insult my intelligence on top of everything else. You used a lie to abandon your mother at an airport so you could go on a free holiday. You wanted to toast my husband's memory with my money while you imagined I sat at home. Did you really think there would be no consequences?" I could hear Linus shouting in the background, his voice a frantic bellow. "Ask her about the return flights! Ask her about the car!" "The return flights?" "Mom, they're gone too, aren't they?" she whispered, the fight draining out of her, replaced by the dawning terror of her situation. "And the car rental, and any other bookings you may have made." "The card has been frozen, Fiona. The account is under a formal fraud investigation. You are in a foreign country with no hotel, no transportation, and no way home. You are on your own." There was a long, shuddering silence on the line, broken only by a choked sob. This was a situation she couldn't lie her way out of. There were no sponsors to appease, no audience to perform for. There was only the cold, hard reality of her actions, landing on her in a chilly Glasgow night. "How could you do this to us?" she finally wailed. "You're asking the wrong question, Fiona," I said softly, looking at the urn gleaming in the lamplight. "You didn't just try to steal a vacation. You tried to steal your father's final wish. You left him behind, just as surely as you left me." I ended the call. I sat in the profound quiet of my living room, the weight of the last year pressing down on me. There was a deep, aching grief for the daughter I had lost long before I had lost my husband. But underneath it, for the first time in a long time, there was peace, a quiet, steady resolve, They had wanted to go to Scotland without me. I had simply granted their wish. They were there. And I was home. With Emin. I had protected his memory. I had protected his dignity. And I had protected myself. The cliffs of Scotland could wait. They would still be there next spring, when I was ready to make the journey properly. Alone,